Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. Today I'm going to go ahead and do a draft analysis between C9 and Flyquest in the recent playoff series. Now I'm a huge Cloud9 fan, just to be transparent, but I'm going to go ahead and go through this draft. C9 ended up losing this series 3-1, and I thought it'd be interesting to look at the draft and see where I think they kind of messed up and lost in draft instead of in game. Now, right here on the screen, we have the first draft pulled up in the order that they were picked. So Cloud9's on blue side. We can look at the bans here. We have two junglers and Caitlyn banned out from C9. Pretty standard. Santorin's a very standout player on Flyquest, so I can see wanting to try to ban him out. And then Caitlyn, just because Caitlyn's pretty busted right now. And on the Flyquest side, the first three bans, we have Callista, Olaf, and Set. Two jungle bans once again, and then an AD carry ban, wanting to try to get that Callista out of the hands of Sven because he is a pretty good Callista player, so they thought they'd go ahead and take that one out of his hands. So we have first pick Ezreal, which I am not a fan of. Why can't you just take the Ashe or even a Senna here? Ezreal's still good and he has his place in the meta, but I don't think that he is first pick blue worthy compared to other things such as the Ashe, because I think the Ashe is probably the second best AD carry right now in the meta. Whenever you take the Caitlyn out, that first pick Ashe should always be there, especially if they don't ban it out. And I think really the only things that can beat it in lane are Callista if piloted well, and then the Caitlyn. And Caitlyn doesn't even stomp it that hard. So I don't like this Ezreal pick. Yeah, it's safe, and I can see second pick, they obviously ended up picking the Yuumi, which pairs very well with the Ezreal for kind of a poke lane. But either way, I don't see the point in having it. So Flyquest also picked Lilia. I'm still on the fence whether Lilia is going to be really good or really bad in pro play. I haven't seen enough of it to really make a decision on it yet. But either way, Lilia second pick. And then C9 once again is going to respond with that Yuumi and Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate for the global pressure. Niski, that's what he's known for. He really tries to put pressure on the side lanes and roam a lot more compared to other mid laners. So I can see the Twisted Fate pick for him. It's a pretty good pickup. And then Flyquest with their last pick is going to go with the Thresh to be a little bit more safe in lane and also set up kills and get a little bit of light initiation in with the Thresh if you can get the hook on someone who's just sleeping. And you go ahead and have that first round. Next bans for C9 are going to be the Orianna and LeBlanc, two mid lane bans thrown against PoE. And then from Flyquest, we have two top lane bans, the Jace and the Gangplank. So Cloud9 ends up Flyquest, sorry, goes ahead and picks Shin here. And Shin, I think, is very good in the meta right now if you're playing top lane because it has global pressure. You can help out other lanes. He also builds damage, unlike other tanks. He builds that Titanic Hydra usually, and can actually stomp laning phase against certain characters because of his auto-blocking ability. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But he is very good right now. He does way more damage than a tank should in lane. It's kind of insane. Either way, Cloud9's going to go ahead and respond with the Vladimir. Not an awful pick into Shin because a lot of his damage is ability based and not auto attack based. So you do have that coming out from Cloud9, and I think that Vladimir, can be good into the Shin. However, Vladimir really needs to scale and doesn't have that global pressure at level 6 like the Shin will. Finally, they round out their comp with the Nocturne. I can see where they're going with the Nocturne almost, because your entire comp here is trying to really just get into the back line and blow up that Ashe, because you have Twisted Fate setting up with the gold card, you have Nocturne going ahead and diving in with his ult, and you have Vladimir trying to get onto a flank and deal a lot of damage in the back of the team fight. However, the problem is Thresh can easily disengage almost all of that if he is, keeping his eye out. You have Shin to give you the Stand United shield and also taunt them off of your AD carry as well. And you have the Azir to shuffle it back out. So really Flyquest has a lot of good ways to disengage away from Cloud9's big idea. And why do they have Ezreal Yuumi here? I don't think that fits into the comp very well. I would have rather seen the Ashe. You get the arrow, so you can even more just blow someone up. Once again, I think they should have went for the Ashe here instead of picking that Ezreal. And Yuumi, I think that Yuumi kinda isn't great right now. You're falling into a trap if you're trying to play Yuumi without something like an Olaf. it's kind of difficult to pull off. Yeah, she's a great healer, great enchanter. However, you don't really have a whole lot of reason to pick Yumi here, especially because if you're going to be trying to dive into the back line and you doesn't work and you kind of just get blown up, well, you get a free double kill if Yumi was on, let's say, that Nocturne. Next, we're going to go ahead and look at the second draft. Alright, so now I have the second draft pulled up, and Cloud9 on blue side once again is going to pick Ezreal, Yumi, and then the Gangplank for their first 3 picks, and Flyquest is once again going to get the Ashe Thresh that won them last game, and then also go with the Volibear for the jungle. Now with the bans here, we have Lilia ban, so because Flyquest won on it, maybe they just don't want to play it again, and then a Graves, and then once again the Caitlyn ban because Caitlyn's pretty busted right now, and then their second phase of bans are going to have 2 mid laners as well that PoE is pretty good on. And then on the Flyquest side, we have the same 3 bans as they did last game, trying to get Blabber off of some playmakers and of course his Olaf, and then Sven as well off of that Kalista. Second round bans, the Trundle, I mean, since you're going to be playing double tank, really 2.5 tanks with that Thresh, I can see why you want to get rid of the Trundle, because then you can't just ult them and shred all of their resistances off. However, I don't think that Trundle is the best character right now, unless you're playing against Olaf, because you can stop him with the pillar. Volibear does have enough mobility with his ult to be able to get out of that pillar if he really, really wanted to. So I don't see the point of banning it, but it's not the worst ban. And then the Twisted Fate as well, getting rid of some of that global pressure. Cloud9's going to end up picking up the Akali and the Lee Sin here. And Flyquest, once again, with the Shin and the LeBlanc. So Cloud9 lost to the Shin last game, and I can see wanting to try to play something else into it. Gangplank, Gangplank versus Take matchup, you're going to scale up, and it's going to end up pretty well. But I don't think it might be the right play here. I think getting rid of that Shin or picking it yourself might have been the better option. However, the thing that I'm kind of angry about is the Ezreal Yumi once again. Why? You have Lee Sin, who's going to be going into the backline. You have Akali, who's going to be going into the backline. A Gangplank that can ult, and then it'll probably just sit and try to hit the tanks and destroy the front line. So it's not really, once again, like the most cohesive draft. Yeah, you have 2 divers and you have some decent frontline damage, but you don't have a frontline yourself. And once again, I think the Yumi is just out of place here. I would have liked to see some other things in this draft. I don't think that it's the best draft that Cloud9 could have had. I don't really like how they set this up and how they picked themselves kind of into a corner here. Now, on the third game, Cloud9 did end up winning that game. However, I think they did lose in draft once again. So the bans are going to be Kalista, Olaf, and Twisted Fate out of Flyquest once again, banning out some very similar champions, and then followed by the Lee Sin and Akali in round 2. And then Lilia, Sett, and Caitlyn from Cloud9 really just, they're not seeming to want to play Caitlyn at all. And then LeBlanc and Thresh, which I think can be good bans because they had played the Thresh 2 games in a row. Get them on something new, So Flyquest is going to end up picking first round Graves. I think Graves is one of the few junglers right now that you actually can blind pick, because I don't really see a whole lot of things that are just going to absolutely stomp it. You can try to go with the Nidalee and try to just starve him of his XP, but that hasn't really been done very well, and Nidalee isn't really winning in the LCS right now. So for Cloud9, they once again, first 2 picks, Ezreal Yumi. Why? They're just, I don't understand it. I don't see the point of it. And then the Gangplank as well. It's just essentially a very, very similar comp. This one, I think it fits in slightly better because you are running more of a poke style. Gangplank can kind of poke out people with his barrels. You have Zoe and you have the Ezreal. So it's more of a kind of poke-ish comp. And then the Gragas, what's the Gragas doing there? He's your only engage and he wants to go in, but the other members kind of want to poke out and almost play a more front to back style when Gragas really wants to get into that back line and just blow people up. Flyquest, they have the Senna paired with another marksman and an Azir to get that more consistent damage down, which I think is really good. The Shin pick once again to be able to help your side lanes out and help snowball elsewhere with your leads, and is also, I think Shin's probably the second best tank in the meta behind Ornn, but Shin also does a lot more damage and can offer something that Ornn can't in his global ultimate. And then you also have Nautilus, it's just a safe support pick. Nothing really special here, but it's not bad, it's not the best, but I think it's a decent pick overall. And then the Azir, when paired with a Senna in the bot lane, because you're not going to have that super consistent damage that other marksmen would have, the Azir pairs really well here. And also the healing for your Graves and your other frontliners that are trying to go in a little bit farther compared to something like your Azir is really nice. And also with the Azir and the Senna, you do have a lot of range to be able to match the Ezreal and Zoe poke whenever they come in close enough to poke. Azir and Senna, once she gets enough souls, can retaliate back against it. Now, of course, Cloud9 does have the Yumi to heal up after something like that, but if they're running a true poke comp, I think even something like a Soraka would have been better here. I'm just not hot on this Yumi pick at all. I think that's one of the big problems that they're having, and one of the reasons that they're struggling to win these games. Now, the last game, Cloud9 lost the third one as well. Going into the fourth game, we have, oh, I wonder what the first pick is. It's going to be the Ezreal, of course, blue side. And we have very similar bans from the Flyquest side, and Cloud9 adding the Azir to the ban list and adding the Graves to the ban list. Flyquest, first pick, Shin. You noticing a trend here? Cloud9's kind of picking Ezreal and Yumi, and Flyquest is just picking Shin every time, and it's really going well. Flyquest's comp right now has a lot of lockdown in this fourth game. They have Shin with the taunt. You have the root from Senna, which isn't the best CC, but it's good follow-up CC. You have Volibear just running in and smacking people for a stun. You have Rakan for really good engage, and then you have the Malzahar just to definitely lock down someone and force almost everybody to buy a QSS. Cloud9, on the other hand, has Gangplank, which you don't need to buy a QSS and can be more resistant against some CC compared to other champions because of his remove scurvy. However, the Zoe, whenever you hop in, if Malzahar gets a chance to ult you while you jump forward in your portal, in your ultimate, you can kind of just get destroyed. At least then you go in and try to kick someone. Malzahar can just ult you. And then you're pretty much just a sitting duck for free damage and you get destroyed. I really like this Flyquest draft. I think it's a lot easier to execute than what Cloud9 has put up with the poke plus Lee Sin, because Lee Sin wants to go in, but the other champions kind of just want to poke them down and not really, just go in and blow that one person up and then get out of the fight or re-engage if necessary. But Flyquest, you're just going to group and you're going to start slapping people down, chain them up with the CC, and then deal damage. One thing I wish Flyquest would have had, I understand that the Azir and the Graves were banned, but another consistent source of damage to pair alongside the Senna, it's not the biggest thing. I think Ashe would have been just as good here as well. I think that the Ashe would have worked alongside instead of the Senna pretty well. Of course, you're not going to have the heal, but you do have a slight heal from Rakan and the shielding from Rakan. So I think you could have really went with Ashe here and even stopped the laning phase a little bit harder than with the Senna. Either way, I think Cloud9 definitely lost a draft here to Flyquest. Hats off to the Flyquest coaching team. And I think that's going to be it for this little draft analysis. If you guys like this video, go ahead, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys next time.